Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're taking a stack of intense research and really tearing into the question of peak performance, skill acquisition, what it actually takes to get better at, well, anything.
We're going to forget the quick fixes, the brain games you see advertised everywhere.
Exactly. Our source material for this is Train Your Mind for Peak Performance, a science-based approach by two cognitive psychology researchers, Lyle Bourne Jr. and Alice Healy.
Right, and we're going to distill their evidence-based strategies and maybe some of the non-negotiable rules so you can efficiently acquire and retain new knowledge.
Okay, so let's unpack that. The core question, I think, is this. How do we shift our learning from slow and, frustrating to fast and efficient?
And we're pulling this knowledge straight from decades of research in cognitive psychology.
Which is what, exactly?
It's the study of mental processes. So everything related to attention, thinking, language, memory. And what's really compelling here is that this isn't just academic theory. This work has been supported and tested by massive institutions with very practical needs. We're talking about the Army Research Institute, the National Science Foundation, even NASA.
Wow. Okay, so this is battle-tested stuff.
It is. And the foundational message they deliver is that true peak performance isn't about luck or innate talent. It's about scientifically proven techniques that really anyone can adopt.
And the very first prerequisite for expertise, it seems, is just getting rid of this myth that skill is something you're either born with or you're not.
Absolutely.
Bourne and Healy are crystal clear on this. Elite performance is made, not born. It requires a specific cocktail of time, effort, and motivation.
They even cite the psychology professor Gary Marcus, who became a guitar expert in his middle years.
Right, he started out calling himself completely tuneless.
Exactly. Proving that mental training benefits people of any age.
Okay, so that's the starting line. But what's the distance of the race?
Well, it's famously quantified by Anders Ericsson's research. It takes approximately 10,000 hours of effort to master a complex task.
10,000 hours. That's so intimidating. That's like 3 hours a day, every day for 10 years.
It is. But you mentioned a critical keyword there in the outline.
Deliberate practice. What's the real difference between just clocking 10,000 hours and clocking 10,000 hours of deliberate practice?
That's the key distinction. Deliberate practice is where you focus consciously, intentionally on challenging your weaknesses.
So it's not just strumming the one chord you know over and over again.
No. It's not about endlessly repeating the tenor you've already perfected. It means constantly pushing slightly past your comfort zone, looking for the specific sub-skills where you falter, and drilling those. That intentional focus is what makes those hours count.
So if that process is inherently difficult, how do you sustain the motivation? How do you keep showing up?
The authors explain it through what they call the positive feedback loop. If you structure your training correctly, you start to see progress. Maybe not immediately, but pretty quickly.
And progress begets progress.
Exactly. Seeing that learning curve accelerate, even just a little bit, it fuels your commitment. It makes the whole effort self-sustaining. Doing better becomes its own reward, which keeps you coming back.
That makes so much sense. We're all wired to appreciate progress, but because we live in a culture that loves shortcuts, the authors spend a lot of time debunking things. They call it the no free lunch rule.
Yes, especially around supplements and diet. We've all seen those media clips, promising the memory pill that will sharpen a sluggish brain instantly.
So they looked at the popular stuff? Vitamin D, ginseng?
All of it. Vitamin D, ginseng, caffeine, chocolate, even ginkgo biloba, which is a huge media favorite back in the 90s. All these things that claim to enhance memory or speed up learning.
And after decades of research supported by these major agencies, what was the conclusion?
They found that while eating a healthy, balanced diet is necessary to keep your mind alert and functioning well.
Right. It keeps the engine running.
Exactly. But it is absolutely not sufficient. You cannot swallow a pill, drink a special tea, or eat a superfood and expect it to eliminate the need for genuine mental training. The training is the work.
And that applies to physical fitness too, doesn't it? Because you always hear that exercise is the ultimate cognitive enhancer.
It's vital for general health, no question. It reduces blood pressure, improves cholesterol, minimizes inflammation, all good things. But the evidence just doesn't support the idea that physical exercise alone can substitute for cognitive work.
So running a marathon won't teach you French conjugations.
It will not. It seems like improved health provides the optimal state for learning, but it isn't the learning mechanism itself. It just frees up your mind from physical worries that get in the way of thinking.
The bottom line is there's no free lunch. No pain, no gain applies to the brain just as much as the biceps.
Precisely. You have to put in the deliberate effort.
Which brings us to how we should structure that effort. It's not just about the hours, it's the quality. First up is finding what they call the zone of learnability.
This is such a critical sweet spot. It refers to that region just beyond what you can currently do.
So if practice is too easy,
You're in your comfort zone. You won't learn anything new. But if it's too difficult, if you lack the prerequisite skills, you'll just be overwhelmed and you won't absorb anything.
okay, so if I'm learning a new language, starting with advanced political theory papers would be too difficult.
Right.
But starting with, my name is John, 10,000 times would be too easy. The sweet spot is that genuine challenge, just a little bit beyond where I am now.
You can think of it like the training wheels approach. You learn balance with the wheels, and then when they come off, you're ready for the regular bike. It prepares you step by step.
That's a perfect transition. And here's where it gets, for me, really interesting. This idea of internal versus external focus during practice.
Oh, this is a big one. The cognitive psychology research finds that, generally speaking, external focus leads to higher performance than internal focus. And that's across a huge variety of activities.
Okay, wait, I have to challenge that a bit. When I was learning golf, my coach was always telling me to focus internally. Keep your elbow locked, rotate your hips. Isn't focusing on your body how you build muscle memory?
It seems like it should be, right?
Yeah.
But it's actually less efficient. That internal focus, concentrating on your arm and wrist, requires conscious attention to specific muscular actions.
Which can be clumsy.
Exactly. Once a skill starts to develop, that internal focus can actually interfere with the automated motor sequence. By contrast, if you use an external focus like concentrating on the flight of the dart or the final resting place of the golf ball, your subconscious system handles the musculature.
So your conscious mind is free to focus on the desired outcome.
You're focusing on the goal, not the mechanism. It's a fascinating inversion of how we often think about perfecting technique.
And when you can't practice physically.
We can rely on mental practice strategies. It's a completely viable strategy for improving a skill when you are away from the equipment.
Like mentally practicing clarinet fingering while reading music on the bus.
Perfect example. And the sources break down how to do it best. First-person mental practice, imagining yourself doing it, seeing it through your own eyes, is generally more effective than third person, which is imagining someone else.
Though watching instructional videos can still be helpful.
Oh, for sure. Learning by observation helps you spot the differences between your performance and an expert's.
Okay, we also need to touch on practice format. Blocked practice versus mixed practice.
Right, so block practice would be repeating the same subtask 10 times in a row. Mixed practice is alternating between different subtasks, like switching between 10 different songs or tennis strokes.
And mixed is better.
Generally, yes, for long-term attention and flexibility. Varying the practice format introduces what they call a desirable difficulty. It forces your brain to constantly retrieve the necessary rules rather than just relying on the short-term memory of what you did 5 seconds ago.
Which brings us perfectly to memory and retention, because all this practice is useless if you can't remember it.
Exactly. We hear about these astounding memory feats, like Rajan Mahadevan memorizing 50,000 digits of pi. The core strategy for this is chunking.
He used a complex system of 10 by 10 matrices, right? But what's the takeaway for the rest of us?
The takeaway is that remembering large amounts of information isn't about raw brain capacity. It's about creating a special mental representation that groups things together.
So how does that apply in the real world? I mean, I'm not trying to memorize pi.
Well, think about the case of SF, an amateur track athlete. He expanded his short-term memory span to an incredible 80 random digits.
Oh.
By chunking them into familiar track events, he'd group digits into running times, dash records, marathon markers. He connected new, unfamiliar digits to old, familiar knowledge.
So if I'm learning complex coding syntax, I shouldn't treat every command as a totally new piece of information.
No, you should chunk similar functions together. Create mental groups like database connection setup or input validation rules.
Ah, so you connect the new, unfamiliar code to the familiar concept of what you're trying to do?
Precisely. The research even suggests you need to experiment to find your optimal chunk size for whatever you're learning, because it differs based on the material.
And this idea of connecting new information to prior knowledge leads right into the keyword method, a classic for foreign vocabulary.
It's a two-step process. First, you associate the foreign word with an English keyword that sounds similar. Then you form a really memorable mental image linking that keyword to the English translation.
Okay, give me an example. Say I'm learning the Spanish word for duck, which is pato.
Okay, pato. You might associate that with the English keyword pop.
Pop, okay.
Now you form a mental image. Maybe a giant, very unhappy duck wearing a tiny cooking pot on its head.
I can see that.
And the crucial detail here is that the keywords and the image must be imageable and concrete. Abstract words like society or liberty are much harder to learn and remember than concrete things like a duck or a pot.
The final retention technique we need to hit is the generation effect. This is basically the scientific backbone of active learning, isn't it?
It is. The underlying principle is that generating information yourself is always better than passively reading or copying it. It's the difference between watching a tutorial and actually trying to solve the problem yourself first.
So, to remember opera composers.
Don't just read the name next to the opera. Try to generate it given just the first few letters. La Bohème Poc. If you're learning arithmetic, calculate the answers in your head. Don't just use a calculator.
I remember the state capitals exercise they mentioned. Generating the state name from the capital worked way better for retention than just copying the pair.
And this active recall is the essence of effective retrieval practice. Testing yourself protects your memory against decay and something called interference.
What's interference?
It's the memory loss you get from hearing similar, confusable information, like when someone gives you a second phone number right after the first one, and suddenly you can't remember either.
And spacing out the tests helps with that.
Yes. The tests should be spaced, so they're neither too easy nor too hard. You want to force effortful retrieval making your brain work to pull that fact out of long-term storage. That's what really cements the knowledge.
Okay, so we've covered acquisition and retention. Now, the payoff. What makes an expert's knowledge transferable?
Right. Nobel Prize winner Herbert Simon estimated that experts have about 50,000 chunks of information.
Yeah.
But expert performance requires more than just knowledge. It requires the ability to generalize that knowledge to new situations.
And that's where variability in practice comes in.
Exactly. If you're a concert pianist who will play on many different pianos, you should practice on as many different types of instruments as possible. The same applies to drivers, doctors, anyone.
The variation builds flexibility. I love the example of practicing typing while capitalizing every other letter.
Yes, that's a variable, challenging condition.
And it improves performance when the task changes to capitalizing every other word. The acquisition phase has to promote that flexibility.
There's also a specific technique called seeding to improve numerical estimation skills.
How does that work?
You practice estimating a small, fixed set of quantities in a domain, and you check your accuracy. For instance, you learn the exact populations of the US, England, and China. Those are your seeds.
And knowing those helps me guess the population of Denmark.
It helps you estimate it more accurately because you have reference points in the same domain.
So if I seed grocery prices, learn the exact price of milk, bread, and eggs, I'll be better at estimating the cost of a jar of pickles.
Exactly. But here's the critical part. This skill is domain-specific. Seeding grocery prices improves your estimates for other grocery items, but that accuracy won't necessarily transfer to estimating hardware store prices. The knowledge is localized.
Okay, and finally, we have to talk about the great performance killer, the thing we're all guilty of, the multitasking myth.
This is such a powerful source of performance impairment, mostly because we all think we're good at it.
We think it's a superpower.
But the research is terrifyingly clear. Human beings have a limited mental processing capacity. If we exceed that capacity by trying to do two complex things at once, performance suffers on one or both tasks.
This is where we get into inattentional blindness. I'm so guilty of this. I'll be trying to reply to an email while listening to a lecture and then realize 5 minutes later I've absorbed neither.
The studies they cite confirm that, but with much more extreme consequences. They talk about individuals on cell phones who completely missed highly unusual events happening right next to them.
Like the clown on a unicycle.
And the clown on a unicycle. They were seeing it, their eyes were pointed at it, but their attention was completely consumed by the conversation.
And the real-world cost is massive. Students on their phones in class had significantly lower grades, a drop of 0.36 on a 4-point scale.
And driving while texting impairs performance as much as being legally intoxicated. The ultimate takeaway is you cannot do two tasks at once and handle them equally well if they compete for the same limited cognitive capacity. The only path is focus.
So if we connect all this, the whole source material is really a scientific roadmap for efficiency, durability, and generalizability. There's no easy route. You have to earn those 10,000 hours.
And the focus has to be on generating knowledge yourself, using variable practice to ensure transfer, and leveraging what you already know through chunking and keywords.
The goal is to replace passive consumption with active, structured engagement.
That's how you become the expert, regardless of your age or background.
So, what does this all mean for you right now? Well, the experts are clear. The most important thing for success is consistent, deliberate practice. It underlies everything: acquisition, durability, and generalizability. Also, keep challenging your brain socially. Social interaction requires dynamic cognitive resources, and it's a fantastic buffer against decline as we age.
You know, we've talked about rules throughout this deep dive.
Yeah.
The source material mentions that when you're teaching a complex skill like mental arithmetic, it's far easier to remember a set of rules like how to multiply any digit by 10 or by 11 than it is to memorize answers to every single possible problem.
So applying a rule is a powerful shortcut to memory and transfer. It works across domains.
Exactly.
So if applying rules is the cognitive high ground, what rule or what cognitive law do you now realize you've been breaking in your own daily learning routine? Are you avoiding that zone of learnability? Are you failing to test yourself? What is the one rule you need to start following today to get your 10,000 hours truly working for you? We hope this deep dive helps you find that answer. Until next time.